Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'm making some doll eyes, which isn't anything new, but I am approaching some of it a little differently from what I've shown before, so I'll talk a bit about that while I share some of my recent hobby thoughts and setbacks. I'm using some 3D printed eye bases I designed. I shared these previously, but I'll include a link to the printable file in the description again. I'm going to be painting these with some acrylic paints, just some craft paints I have on hand, nothing fancy, and I start by just painting this directly onto the resin. Unlike cast resin, 3D printed resin is very porous, so the paints stick really well without needing any kind of primer. Cast resin can be very slippery. So these eyes are supposed to be for two different dolls. I'm trying some small iris 12mm brown eyes for Garam, who is my current work in progress, and some small iris 10mm eyes for a different doll entirely that I started working on after I decided Garam would be my next project, because that's the way creative projects go sometimes. His eyes are supposed to be a stormy gray, so I'm using a silver for the base color on these because it'll catch light much better and should be a little brighter. I paint all these up, and before I put a clear coat on them at the end of the whole project, I'll clean the bases to remove any stray dust or dirt. During the painting stage and even the resin doming stage, the dust on the white parts doesn't really matter because it's just going to come back as these get handled because they're textured, so dust sticks easily. Once I get the base color in there, I'll let it dry, and then I'm going to go over the color with a wash of super thin black acrylic paint, which will settle into the sculpted texture and add some visual interest without a lot of effort needed. I really only need one pair for either doll, but you'll see I'm making more than two eyes because one thing I've learned is that if I make two, I'm probably not going to end up with two usable eyes because resin is really finicky, and temperature or humidity changes can really affect the result you get, so I always make extras to ensure I get some that turn out well. And I guess that's really what leads me into the main subject of today's work chat, which is that sometimes tiny projects end up bigger than you expect they'll be, and sometimes they won't work out at all, which ends up costing time too. You might have noticed that I had a really good streak of sharing something every week for like 2 months, then I missed last week. That was because I was trying to make eyes so I'd have them ahead of doing digital mock-ups for upcoming doll face-ups, so I could get a better idea of what I wanted to do with the paint and blushing. I'm kind of working around the concept of the whole finished doll. But I'm also in kind of a time crunch right now, so doing doll eyes was really all I had time for, and it took me more than a week to do this since I only had a little time to spare each evening, and I had to wait between each layer of paint. Which meant I was really just doing like brown eyes one night, silver eyes one night, black wash one night, you get the idea. And while I'm working on my current book project, that's really all I can do. I'd signed up for a project collaboration all the way back in January, with the goal being publication of a shorter fairy tale book, and when I signed up in January, I thought I would have all summer and fall to write said short book. That ended up not happening. I had a ton of issues crop up in my personal life that got in the way of completing my epic fantasy series on time, so I didn't get started on the fairy tale book until August. Then another problem came in that the collaboration meant I didn't get to pick my release date. So when some other people dropped out of the collab, my release date got pushed up by a whole month, and that means I pretty much have 3 weeks now to finish all the writing, rewriting, editing, and formatting for that book. I've always been firm that my work writing takes precedence over my hobbies, so until that project is done, my schedule probably won't be as steady, but I'm still trying to make sure I fit in a little time for little things each day. I've gotten a lot of questions about resin types for eye making, and really as long as it says hard type UV resin, it'll work. This one is from a regular craft store. And for these particular eyes, I'm doing something a little different with the doming of the resin. I'm using a dotting tool for clay to add the resin to the eye. This gets dipped into the liquid resin, and then I dab the resin into the iris of the eye to let it run down into the pupil indentation on its own. This is to address an issue I was having where a lot of air bubbles were getting trapped in the tiny pupil and ruining the eye. You couldn't always see it until it was cured, then it was a big silver blob right in the middle. After the resin runs down into the center, I cure it for about 30 seconds, just that super thin resin layer. And then I add more layers over the texture in the iris. Using the dotting tool to wipe it around the eye and let it run helps me get it into all the texturing and prevents bubbles there too. Each thin layer gets cured until the eye is mostly filled, just a little hollow indentation left. Then I'll use the dotting tool to dab on enough resin to create the dome for each eye. The dome just relies on surface tension in the resin, so that hollow is enough to keep it all where it needs to be. Applying it this way lets me control where the resin is going and also how much is going on, which for really tiny irises like this, that can be a lot easier than trying to put the resin in using the nozzle on the bottle. But one thing that happened as I worked on this project was I kind of realized that I don't actually like making resin eyes all that much. I've gotten decent at it. I think the eyes look okay and they work well for my dolls, but I find the experience to be more of a hassle than being fun. So I guess the biggest takeaway from this project is something I should be doing anyway. I cleaned out my craft space and felt a lot better after letting go of projects that weren't going to make me happy, so I think I'm going to start doing that with certain aspects of the doll hobby too. You don't have to do everything. I've loved experimenting with everything, trying everything at least once, but if you try something and you don't enjoy the process, why would you keep doing it? Even if you're good at it, if it doesn't make you happy and you're not having fun doing it, it's not something you're looking forward to doing, then there's no sense in continuing. I know I like doing face-ups and I like sewing, so I'll keep doing those. I like making acrylic eyes, but not the resin ones where I have to paint and dome them like this. So maybe I just won't do that anymore. There are tons of eye makers out there who are a lot better at it than me, and often the acrylic eyes that I make with the photo papers can look just as nice as resin. So I think this might be the last time I do this particular project. The gray ones turned out alright, but none of the brown ones did, so that just kind of highlights this isn't something that I want to keep repeating. And the gray ones turned out alright, they look fine in the doll they're intended for, but if I had ordered some eyes from elsewhere, I'd also be a lot farther along with what limited time I have to devote to this project right now. So that's some food for thought for me, but that's all I have time for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.